Hello guys and welcome for another Eternum video. Today we will talk about one of the most impactful mage builds when it comes to high DPS and kill participation in any big scale PvP content. I will try to explain what exactly should be your goal and what you should focus on the most. Not only that, but we will also go over a few different variations in terms of itemization and priority for your gear setup. Before going any further, I just want to quickly remind you that your support is highly appreciated and that we are still growing our nice community with more than 600 people in the Discord channel. If you are enjoying the build guides and the information shared here in YouTube, feel free to subscribe to the channel as it's free and it would not cost you anything. Other ways to support the channel growth is to follow me on the streaming platforms, for which you can find links in the description below. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the topic of proper mage setup and how we can achieve high bursts of damage in the form of AoE. For those of you who are new to the game and still don't know the different Fire Staff setups, I will quickly try to explain and give examples in order to make the picture clearer. If you believe that you already know everything about the Fire Staff and you have the necessary experience, feel free to skip to the build part and the itemization. The mage class, same as all other classes in the game, have few different builds and item combinations. You can experiment between all of the weapons and their respective abilities in many different ways, but there is always something which can be considered as meta due to the fact that it would work the best way possible for the specific role that you are playing. If we simply take a quick look over the three main magic weapons, we can see that each and every of them serves a specific purpose in the PvP aspect of the game. The Fire Staff is the main source of damage with consistent flow of normal attacks and abilities combined with low cooldowns and decent range of attack. Due to the lack of party buffs and debuffs, the weapon is strictly focusing on high DPS output. The Ice Gauntlet, on the other hand, is the best defensive tool for the mage kit, providing a mix of passive and active abilities which for the most part are used for defensive purposes. It has few abilities which can also cause damage, but their damage per second compared to the Fire Staff is not that good, and also the range for them is quite limited. Last but not least, we have the Void Gauntlet, which can be used as a buff and debuff tool, providing you and your allies a lot of empower and healing while reducing the enemy's armor and damage. The Void Gauntlet can also be used as a DPS source, but same as the Ice Gauntlet, the uptime for the damage is not that great compared to the Fire Staff, and it's also quite situational. All three magic weapons are extremely useful and each of them has its own unique playstyle. However, they also have some negative sides which we will not go deeply over, as this would not be the topic of the video. With that information, now we know the very basics about the three core mage weapons, so let's take a closer look to the mage role, which is also known as the DPS role for war rosters and also OPR. As mentioned already, the Fire Staff is great at consistent high burst of damage from a distance. This means that the positioning of the player on such role should be as safe as possible in order for him to deal the maximum amount of damage for the course of the fight. There are many different tactics for wars and guesses in general of what is the best position. As I played such role for quite some time now, I will share with you the main points which can help you determine where is the safe haven for damage, and you can find it yourself. When playing in wars or OPR games, the best position for a DPS Fire Staff will be on an elevated ground and distance from the fight as much as possible. Of course, you still need to maintain range of around 15 to 20 meters, as this will be the maximum range for some of your abilities. Another quite important note here is your surroundings. You have to be able to have a quick look around each 5 to 10 seconds in order to see if there is anyone approaching you. Don't forget that you also have a weakness, and it mainly comes from the melee DPS players, who are also called assassins. If you manage to keep a good lookout around your area, you will have a decent time for reaction in case you are getting flanked. Another good tip for the DPS Fire Staff class is to position yourself a bit on the side from your frontline teammates. This way you will also have an access to the enemy's backline, which can result in you hitting directly the opposing DPS players and make them retreat. Believe it or not, this is way more efficient than just spamming your abilities in the front line of the enemy. Those of course are very basic tips which I wanted to share with you, and now we can go over the build and the different choices for it. Let's start with the two weapons and also the necessary perks for them. The first combination that we will look at is the classical pair between fire and ice. This is really well-rounded combination between the two magic weapons, as it provides both good offense and defense. For this one we will use the Deep Freeze artifact, and for a last perk on it we will slot Unending Toe. In the gem slot the choice should be clean onyx without any rune glass effect. The reason for that is that Ice Storm is always your opener in terms of damage rotation, and you want to maximize the damage for each and every tick from the Ice Storm. We are not using a rune glass effect because the effect cannot be triggered by Ice Storm and Ice Shower abilities. For the Fire Staff the choice is a bit more complicated, as there are few different options. If we want to aim at the new maximum gear score of 725, it will have to be a crafted Fire Staff, but there is one piece of a named staff which is quite strong due to the illegal combination of perks, and this is the Flint Stick. The stick always comes from the PvP track, and it always has Alacritus Punishment and Vicious, which are both quite strong perks in terms of attack power. For the last perk the choices can be many and they will depend on your personal goals. Good choices can be Play Crits, Keen, Attunement, Keenly Jacked, and even some of the new perks like Penetrating Empower. The negative side remains that you cannot upgrade the staff to 725, and it will only be able to reach 700 gear score, which will lose you a total of 4 attribute points. If we go for a crafted version, however, the illegal combination is no longer possible. Therefore, the best choice of perks should have Alacritus Punishment, Attunement, and then for the last third one you can choose again from the ones I've mentioned already. In the gem socket the best choice for the Fire Staff will remain Rune Glass with any type of element, emerald, for extra damage against people under 50% HP. The other combination which you can run as a DPS Fire Mage is to use the Void Gauntlet instead of the Ice Gauntlet as a secondary weapon. This is quite strong pair in terms of damage output, but the negative side of it is that your defense and survivability will be quite weak. This means that your positioning should be on point 24/7 if you want to get the maximum out of it. The Fire Staff choices remain the same as before, as there is not much to be changed for your main hand weapon. For Void Gauntlet, however, you would want to get the artefact Life Taker, as this will increase your damage output even further due to the unique passive Negative Energy. For last perk, I would suggest you to pick a perk that will complement one of your abilities from the Void Gauntlet skill tree, as you will not need any offensive perks on it. Good choices can be Slowing Tether or Diminishing Orb. The reason for that is quite simple. You will have the Void Gauntlet on your back for the most part, and none of the damage perks will give you any value. The next part of the build will be the armor and jewelry pieces. As always, I like to start with the artifact piece for the armors, as I believe that this is what determines a lot of the other perks and choices. Since the hard nerf of Nature's Wrath from the last season, we need to look at new artifacts to fill the gap for extra damage. One of those are the medium gloves Ghostly Touch, which will provide you with consistent 10% empower, while you also strip down 2 of the enemy's empowers when you are hitting them. Also, the item comes with amazing 2 other perks, which are Enchanted Ward and Refreshing. In order to have the maximum equip load bonus and remain in light gear, we have to use medium pants, and the other remaining pieces, the hat, chest and boots, should be in light gear as well. Optimal perks for them would be Enchanted Ward, conditionings in the form of Slash and Thrust, and of course some weapon perks. The most necessary perks for high and stable damage would be Empowering Meteor Shower, Refreshing Pillar of Fire, and of course Fireball. I personally don't recommend you to go for Ice or Void Gauntlet perks, apart from the ones that we already mentioned, and they should be slotted on the weapons. Another note for the people that are concerned if you should use harnessing in your gear or not, please note that the cap of Empower is 50% and it's quite easy to be reached. The most you can go for is 5 ignited rune glass gems in your armor for the additional 10% of empower in fire damage, but keep in mind that this should only be used when you are having the deep freeze artifact. When you are running the Void Gauntlet, your empower level is almost always high due to the empowers from Oblivion, which is 15%, and the empower from Tether, which is 20%. Looking at the jewelries, the choices are the same all across the board for both of the combinations. For Amulet, you should aim to have slash protection, refreshing and stamina recovery, and for a ring, I suggest you to take the Elemental Band due to the illegal combination of empower and extra critical chance. For last perk on it, I think that the best choice could be refreshing, but if you believe in something else, you can go for it. If obtaining this artifact is not possible for you due to the access to the raid, probably a normal ring with hearty fire damage and refreshing should do the work as well. For earring, my choice remained the same as the previous season, and this would be Refreshing Toast, Refreshing and Nimble. The last piece of the gear is your heart rune, and usually the safest option is to go with Stoneform. Of course, if you never feel enough pressure from your enemies and you survive without any difficulties, another choices can be the cannon or the biobomb. Before going any further with the remaining information about the skill trees and the attributes for the build, I must mention one more thing. During one of the streams, thanks to you guys, we've discussed that there is a potential higher damage with the use of another artifact, and this is the winged leather shoes. This of course can only be done if you can reach the maximum of 50% in power and then get the bonus from the artifact, which is 10% base damage increase while being hasted. There is one issue however, and the question is, how can I haste myself all the time in order to maintain the 10% base damage? It is definitely not that simple, but at the same time it's not so hard. If you have one of the new perks called Hasted Vigor, you will be able to receive a speed buff whenever you are hit while a dot is applied to you. As we know, rune glass effects are technically dots, so each hit from an enemy should trigger this. Another way of making this work is to slot a point into a passive called Combat Speed of your Fire Staff skill tree. This will ensure that you will get a burst of speed each time you cast an ability, and as we know, the cooldowns, especially for AoE DPS Fire Staffs, are quite low due to the mass spam of abilities. And here comes the comparison between the two artifacts. Do you want to get the Ghostly Touch gloves, which will ensure 10% in power all the time, and you will also be able to remove 2 of the enemy's empowers, or you want to aim at even higher damage with the winged leather shoes? I believe that both artifacts are extremely good and can suit well the DPS Fire Staff class. But however, the choice remains yours as you are the one knowing your playstyle the best. If you decide to give a shot for the shoes and get the 10% extra damage, there is almost nothing that has to be changed in the terms of gearing. For the last perk, you still want to aim at Enchanted Ward, as this, as mentioned earlier, is a must-have. You also need only one perk of Hasted Vigor anywhere on your armor, so you can guarantee yourself the extra haste when you are getting hit, and the remaining perks are basically conditionings and weapon perks as priority. With the gear out of the way, let's take a quick look at the skill trees for all weapons. Starting with the Fire Staff, we want to aim mostly on the left side of the skill tree and to take all 3 AoE abilities in the form of Pillar of Fire, Meteor Shower and Fireball for maximum damage output. From the right side, the necessary passives are just 4 and they are crucial for the sustained high damage, so make sure you don't skip them. The second skill tree we will take a look at is the Ice Gauntlet. As mentioned, this is a defensive weapon and therefore the skill tree mainly focuses on defensive abilities. We still want to have the necessary Ice Storm from the left side, but the remaining points are more orientated to the right one with Shower and Entomb, as those are our protectors from danger. The last skill tree is the one of the Void Gauntlet. Here there are a few varieties for which you can opt for, but mainly the weapon provides us with the most in power with just few clicks. We want to have the abilities Oblivion, Tether and Orb. If you really want to have something else, maybe replacing Tether or the Orb for Scream would be an option, but keep in mind that Scream is mainly useful on close combat due to the 5-meter range, and if you rely on it to save yourself from assassins, probably you should work more on your positioning. Another key component of the build are the attributes. I personally go with 150 constitution whenever I play the DPS role, but in rare cases the risk can be extended further and you can try to go with low as 100 constitution. Keep in mind that this would be extremely risky and each wrong step would cost your life. With the remaining points, I like to take the 25 dexterity bonus for extra critical chance, and the remaining can be used in intelligence. Another small note here is that going above 450 intelligence is already not that beneficial. This means that another option for your distribution can be the 25 focus for the extra 5% cooldowns, or the 50 strength, which will increase all your heavy attacks damage by 10%. There is a lot more that can be said and shared, but unfortunately the time is never enough. Therefore, if you enjoyed the content and you want to learn more about the game, make sure to join my Discord community channel or catch me live streaming on the platforms mentioned in the description below. I hope that this way you will be able to improve your gameplay and you will step into the battle in no time. As always, thank you so much for watching and I will see you on the next one.